Are we here? There we are! What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of Lost in the Dark podcast. Aaron and I are back, Skyping from the crypt, and yeah, we got some shit to talk about tonight. Very excited. First off, let's start with the story. Aaron, you brought a story to my attention. Why don't you introduce that bad boy for me?
Yeah, man. So I came across some stuff today when I was looking around because we all kind of know that venues around just everywhere, really in general, doesn't matter where it's at, are suffering because of
There's no live shows. There's nobody coming into the all the venues are closed.
So there was a post that I saw that was from the National Independent Venue Association. That's basically working on funding to here. I'll read through it. I'm writing this to you today as your constituent, community member, as a music lover. For all these reasons, I ask for your support. The National Independent Venue Association's effort in Washington to protect independent venues and promoters in this time of existential crisis. Every day in conversations on the news and especially on social media feeds, we see wildly hyperbolic messaging, but in reality, this is that if concerts don't resume in 2020, 90% of independent revenues across America will likely not open again, ever, including venues in our community. This was something that caught my attention because not only did I see this post, but there was also an email from the intersection. They sent me this same link that was saying basically they're trying to help venues stay open. And, during this time, any business, any small business anywhere is suffering. My work in general, I know from a personal standpoint is kind of one of those where we're kind of a weird spot, but it's a different kind of conversation. But yeah, so they're basically saying, I'll send you this link. We talked about it, but they're just asking that people says copy and paste this message and please feel free to add your own personal story of how live music venues are important to you. And it's saying, reach out to your, to Congress, and it's a whole story of where they're trying to get funding for, and they're trying to pretty much reach like the federal level for things to kind of open back up and to get funding for all this stuff, because it's pretty much overnight it sent everybody into a whirlwind of uncertainty. And so this is just kind of one of the things that I've seen that really first kind of caught my attention, where I was like, man, this is something that's very sad reality for a lot of places. And I feel like it's unfortunate that at this point there are some places that will suffer from this. But it's, I don't know, I just felt like it was important to kind of bring up, with the whole current state of things, and just kind of seeing that this is one of the first things that I've seen that that really kind of spoke to me in terms of just general information about where the music industry is headed after all of this specifically, because there's a lot of different other, industries that are, for one reason or another, that are affected by this in certain ways. And, music venues are no real exception to this. And, I don't know. So I just felt like it was important to bring up and to kind of talk about. And I'd like to actually kind of share this on our page and on this, on this video, just to kind of get people aware of it. And, there's it's hard to kind of explain exactly, there's a lot of information here. I just kind of briefly went through it, kind of what it's about. But, if you take the time to kind of read through it, and if you follow this page, definitely take a look and, try to support anywhere really, because this is the time to do it.
And if you're watching this, I'll be sure to put the link to this article in this video when this comes out. And we will share this on all of our social media. But also, why don't you read the HTML website name, plug that shit right now for anybody watching.
It is nivassoc.org/take action. It looks like it says Take Action, NIVA, National, and that stands for the National Independent Venue Association. So it's pretty much just their website. I'm sure if you Google NIVA, it'll bring up the article and bring up their website and all that stuff. I just found that on Facebook.
Well, hopefully people find it on YouTube now. No, absolutely. And you know what? That is something I would you know what? What the fuck else do we have to do? I might actually sit down and take the time to figure out which congressperson to write to about why these venues are so important. That's no fucking joke. These places for people like you and I are a home away from home. You know, these are the only places that people like you and I can go in public in a mass gathering situation and feel completely accepted. And like we can just talk, like everybody's our friend, even though we haven't even met yet. Yeah. Like that's what these fucking places do for people like us. And they're so fucking critical. And the ones here in Michigan that we've talked about on this podcast, like pretty much every single time we did a fucking like a show reflection, we talked about the goddamn venue, the intersection, Harpo's, St. Andrew's fucking Hall, the Majestic, the Machine Shop, for Christ's sake, the Machine Shop, fucking DTE Pine Knob, fucking, you know what I mean? Like the Freedom Hill Amphitheater, which is now called the Michigan Lottery Amphitheater. You know, yeah, it's like there are so many others. I'm not, for some reason, I'm blanking on right now. But like, Max here in Lansing, the Loft here in Lansing. Just so fucking many venues and places that aren't happening right now that you and I would normally be at on a regular basis. All the way down to fucking basement. I had a fucking calendar lined up even with, there's a new basement venue in Lansing that I was going to fucking, you and I were going to go to a show and check it out in April. And I guess, yeah, it is still April for another few days, but now that, you know, all that got canned, you know what I mean? Like all these places, like maybe I should reach out to them and see if I can get them on the podcast.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Kind of see their kind of take on all this, and just to kind of figure out like the history of it.
Because I mean, I talked to them at the last Recorruptor show at Oigs Fest. They were at Oigs Fest, and they said they were interested in being on, but that was literally a week or two before all this shit started. Like barely.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember talking about that.
So yeah, no, like these venues, Harpo's, you know what I mean? Like these places are Harpo's, Pine Knob, the Machine Shop, you know, St. Andrew's, the Intersection, you know, even ones from the past, Clutch Cargo's in the Orbit Room, the even new ones like the 21 Monroe Live. These places are, that's where real life fucking magic happens. Like if you want to see actual magic in real life, that's where you go to see it. Mm-hmm. Like that's like those are cathedrals of the astounding. Like they are cathedrals of the chaos. Like they are just the places where these memories that we have, the Fillmore, the State Theater, you know, the Fox Theater. These are the places where these special things fucking happen, and we can't lose them. We can't lose them, because if we lose them, then we lose our cathedrals. We lose our sanctum sanctorums, our places of acceptance and you know, just uninhibited passion for what we love. It's so fucking important. So yes.
So it and I just kind of want to go back and kind of further through that, where that article takes you. Just because I was kind of reading through it or I don't know, just reading back through it as we were talking about it, and the headline of it kind of struck me. It's in that article as well. It says more than 800 music venues joined together to ask congressional leaders for aid. The thing that says at the bottom of it says, because of our unprecedented tenuous position, for the first time in history, there is a legitimate fear for our collective existence. National Independent Venue Association President Dana Frank says in an open letter. It looks like it's on the bottom. So it takes you to the article to kind of further explain into it. But that's, I mean, you know.
What was that? You gave a percentage in the beginning of this of how many venues might close. What was that percentage? Is it like something terrifying?
Yeah. It says, but in reality, this is one that concerts don't resume yeah. So it's at 90% of independent venues across America will likely not open, including the venues in our community, which is
90.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not entirely sure where they're getting the number from, where they're like, sure, you can, you know.
Fair enough. But the fact that number is even being tossed around in an article at all.
Yeah.
Oh,
and it looks like even on their website, if you go to the drop down, there's a thing that says take action, and it takes you right to the thing that I'm talking about, and it also like directly connects you to either of the senators, and it says either send video or send message.
Fuck so yeah. Yeah. What's that website that you're on right there?
It's still just the first one that I sent you initially.
Say it again.
It's the National Independent Venue Association.
Okay.
So.
Fuck yeah. National Independent Venue Association official website. Go there. Like, look, like if you're watching this show, like, I mean, this is something that's look, go back to the first 100 episodes of this fucking podcast, and a lot of those episodes are us talking about the shows we just went to at these venues. Like, that was the material for a lot of the beginning of this podcast, and without those venues, like, oh my god, dude, like, it breaks my fucking heart every time we lose a venue. If we lose 9 out of 10 of them in the state, like, we're left with nothing but the big ones.
Yeah.
And the thought of that terrifies me. The thought of the idea that I can't see. I mean, oh my god, dude. They just renovated the Fillmore.
Yeah. Like, a lot of venues put a lot of money into. I feel like the last couple that we went to either have had like renovations to them, or there's been like, you know, like construction and stuff.
What's the one in fucking Battle or not? What's the one right by where Michigan Metal Fest is? Is that Battle Creek?
Oh, Music Factory.
Music Factory.
Yeah,
that is Battle Creek. Yeah, shout out to them too. That's another fucking amazing. You and I went there, right?
Yeah.
Devil Driver?
Yeah.
Dude.
I've been there quite a few times. I love that place.
Oh, great venue. Great fucking venue. Oh my god, dude. Like, I don't want to lose any of these fucking places, man. I'm scared. I'm scared I'm going to lose venues, and I'm scared I'm going to lose some of my favorite restaurants, because these, like, there are certain restaurants in this state that are family heritage. Like,
definitely.
My family has been going to some of these restaurants for 40 plus fucking years. Like, these are unbelievably important to me personally and Lost in the Dark.
I don't even have to ask which one you're talking about, because I already know.
Oh, I know you know. And I think specifically Armando's is doing all right because I follow them on all social media. Shout out to Armando's, ARMONDO''S on Werner Highway in Detroit, Michigan. Look them up. The greatest Mexican restaurant on earth. My family's been going there for over 40 years. We went there. We go there after every fucking concert we go to in Detroit. And they on their social media they've been providing food for first responders in Detroit, sending food to hospitals and stuff during the crisis. Nice. So I think and they are open and offering takeout and all that stuff. So I pray that they are doing all right, because if I will not lose that restaurant, okay, I will do whatever it takes.
We'll pool our money together and fucking open that.
I would take out a fucking loan, and if the bank won't give it to me, I'll find a goddamn loan shark. Like, that place is not ending because of the coronavirus. I'll say that right now. Jesus Christ! But these venues, the restaurants, everything. It's a nerve-wracking time. Mm-hmm. It's a nerve-wracking time, and I hope that these places get the help that they need. And part of that is people like us reaching out to people through this website that you've provided, that we're going to link in the description below. We'll also check our social media. We're going to post it on the Instagram and the Facebook. Those are our social medias, and this is the YouTube. So here's the post for that. And yeah, like that will reach out, support your venues, and these places are not only important for the big bands that you love, but also the local bands that you might not even know yet coming up. Without small local venues, where do they have to ever play? So this is the main line of the underground music world. This is the main line, is these small little venues. This is the fucking main fucking artery. Like, without, you take small little venues away, where do the small bands go? Yeah.
Oh, and like, ever since I can remember being excited about local venues, it was always like it's hard to even picture just a world without, mostly, like, there's more than just these two, and I'm not really sure where they fall on this spectrum. Like, I'm not really sure how affected they are. I'm sure, everybody anywhere is. But I'm just not sure how much. But I couldn't really imagine a Lansing without a Max or the Loft, like any place like that. And because I've lived here or close to the area my whole life, and like those are, like I said, there's the Avenue, and there's the the Green Door, and a couple other places and it's nothing against them, but those are the two that I really grew up kind of going to and just being a part of. And I have, kind of like what you were saying, like I have so many just memories from like I met fucking like Winds of Plague at the Loft, and I met hung out with Dark Sermon and at Max Bar and in Lansing, and hung out with them and stuff, and like we played with Fit for an Autopsy at Max, and
I was there.
Yeah, man. I played my first show in Lansing, and
we saw Gore.
Yeah, man. So many of these just great headliners and just other bands that took the time to actually fucking pay attention to what was out here. Because and kind of the other thing is you kind of said it, is that and we've talked about it quite a bit. The fact that you either have to go to Grand Rapids or to Detroit or to to Flint for a show, for anything, just gigantic, and
typically any national touring act, yes.
Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah. And there's been times where bands that that had no business playing at the Loft or playing at Max were here, and I was there. I saw those and stuff, and like I just have these, and to not have that be an option, and to not even be able to just. I don't even really want to picture it.
I mean, for people that don't understand, Max is barely 600 square feet.
It's been around forever. Like, it's probably outlived any other venue that is in this.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I would say so. that I'm aware of, yes, without question.
Like my dad has stories from Max.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I would love to hear those.
Yeah. Oh, dude. He's told me about like his friends getting like, I don't know. We'll talk about it later because I don't know how. But yeah,
we're
like
gonna
that's
have him on.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
That'd be excellent.
But yeah, and like that's the other thing too is anybody who's anybody that's been into music around this area has a story from either of those venues. And so that's why this is, is a crucial time, because without those, we don't have, like, what else is there? So
no, exactly. And if you live, and I know a lot of our viewers are from Michigan and are from the Lansing area. If you're from here and Max, and you want to help and you want to support them during this time, there is a way to do that. Go to their website, go to their social media. They have released a pin.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
The golden dumpster.
Yeah.
Which if you're local, you know what that is.
Yep.
And you can get the pin for $10, and all the proceeds go to the wait staff and to help Max. I did purchase one. I've already purchased one. I'm just waiting for it to come in the mail because I got a fucking battle vest here that I'm working on.
Oh,
that I need some pins and patches for. So I was like, perfect. I'll fucking order up one of those. It's only $10. It's a great pin, and it's a local legend. So, so yeah, if you're from the Lansing area, even if you're not and you just want a cool pin, for your battle vest, fucking hop on MAC''S bar Max Bar Lansing, Michigan. Look it up, and you'll find it. It's it's a very cool place.
Yeah, honestly, if you just search Max Bar Lansing in Google, you'll find it. Like it's not really tough. But yeah, it's I thought I'd bring that up to kind of start things off because I saw it earlier today and I was like, man, this is it's the reality of the situation right now, and unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are suffering from it and are really struggling to even keep the doors open, and that's why you always hear like buy local and support local anywhere you can, and so this is kind of our way of doing that, and kind of so
yes, please support these places. They're unbelievably important to all of us, and especially the local metal scene. There is a gigantically budding, just bubbling below the surface, gigantic metal scene in Lansing. And without places like Max and the Loft, I think that scene never has a chance to take off like it has the potential to do right now. So yeah, support these places. And if you're not from Lansing, if you're from far away, support just any local venue that you love, that you have memories in.
Yeah.
God, man, like the memories, like the cool fucking shit that you saw in those places, the friends you made, the drinks you had, like the fucking, I love these places so fucking much. To me, they are the only, I go through daily life. I go to work, I go to stores, I do this, I do that, whatever. But when you go to these shows, you feel at home. And it's the only place. And we need these places to facilitate that. And yeah, every aspect of the industry is hurting right now. And we need to step up as metalheads, as we have always done in the past, and support the things that we love. So yeah, definitely do that. And I'm glad you brought that up.
I will cheers to that. I don't know if you got any sitting there, but hey.
Cheers, motherfucker.
Hey.
So yes, thank you for bringing that up. We will again be sure to link that in the description of this video and share it on all of our social media because it is critical. But then
it's crazy because like, and I didn't bring it up in any kind of way. I just like I saw it today and I was like, oh, that'd be good to talk about or whatever on the podcast. But then we watched the first thing we're probably gonna talk about, and it almost like everything that I've seen today, everything that I've like watched has all like tied together in some way. Like it's all
crazy?
kind of, you know what I mean? Like I saw that and then it was like, oh, then there's this, like, you know.
And you sent that article to me this morning. So I've been having the same experience.
it's like, crazy. I don't. Yeah. The world's talking to me, I guess. I don't know.
It's talking. It's talking. The universe is talking. So the next thing I want to talk about briefly, real quick, just touch on, because a few episodes ago, I went off on Ticketmaster for not for changing their policy during this pandemic crisis to where people could not get refunds for postponed or canceled concerts. They decided to tried to quietly change their policy, but then the heavy metal world blew that shit up. As we do. And we make things loud. We turn it to 11. And they are now backpedaling. They have apparently Live Nation, the parent company of Ticketmaster. Yeah, that's right. It's a monopoly.
You didn't know
have launched a website to where if it's a little confusing, but this is how I understand it. If your show has been canceled, you can get a refund. If your show has been postponed, then your ticket can still be good for the new date, or you can get a refund, but only within 30 days of the announcement of the rescheduled date. So, for a situation like me personally, I have a ticket for the Testament Black Dahlia Murder Municipal Waste Tour, okay? That show has been postponed, but there has not yet been a rescheduled date. So for someone like me, I cannot potentially get a refund until there is a rescheduled date. Once that new date has been announced, I then have 30 days to get that refund.
So, yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of weird.
That's how I understand it, at least.
Yeah.
And you know, it is kind of crazy, and you know, it is. I mean, I don't really have a problem with it. I think it's weird. I think they should. I think that they should just offer refunds if it's been postponed at all. Yeah. And not wait for a rescheduled date, because we're all sitting here right now. Nobody's in the know. For all we know, there could not be a live show again until 2022. Sitting here right now, we don't fucking know. We don't fucking know. So that's the situation we're in right now. And I think as a result of that, they should just offer refunds across the board. But because I don't know. But I wanted to bring it up because I put them through the ringer for changing that policy, and now they're backpedaling. So I wanted to be fair. And much shit as I talked, they are at least backpedaling on that one.
Yeah. Well, they do deserve it still, I feel. But
agreed.
Like to kind of see that, you know, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that I'm sure after they saw the response to it with the Live Nation stuff that they were probably like,
oh, they're getting sued over this shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. I wonder because you gotta think, like, because you've had this happen at one time. Well, not so much with, I guess like with this whole crazy pandemic shit, but you've had tickets for a show that got postponed and then rescheduled
or canceled completely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
do you think that attendance is going to be like overly packed if we do end up getting a certain spot where it's like, you know what I mean? Like some places are offering refunds, some aren't, some are, it's like like accepting tickets that have been sold already, some are not, like I don't know. Like do you see it making a bigger difference in, like, as far as like
like wait. What making a bigger difference? The Ticketmaster policies?
So I guess let me back up a little bit. In terms of like having tickets for a show that's postponed, and they're saying that they're offering it for the new date. Do you think that, like, what does that mean? I guess for like sold out shows, or for shows that have, like, a lot of people already for the initial date and then they get pushed back. Like, are those a part of the sold out portion of the show, or is it like do you think it's going to affect it as far as that goes? Like, do you think attendance is going to be more because of this?
Oh no, not necessarily. I mean, let's look at it this way. I mean, Vakken is usually sold out a year in advance, and that just got canceled. So, and actually, I think on our very first video podcast episode, I said I think Vakken is canceled, which I said that before I was wrong at the time of recording of that, but now it is. You fucked up on the show. You made a mistake. Shout out to Jamie Johnson. Fucking, but so that got canceled. So look, I honestly, man, this is so fucking crazy, and it's so hard to say. But with what I, as an individual, which isn't, I'm a nobody. But with what I, as an individual, have gathered at this point, until we got a fucking vaccine, until we got something that wipes this shit out, ain't gonna be no live shows. And nor there should be, and if there are, the attendance is not going to be heavy. And I don't even know how the fuck you do a live metal show in a situation like this. I believe Randy Bly, frontman of Lamb of God, was quoted earlier today in saying it's impossible because you might be able to practice social distancing, but then as soon as the first band comes on, it's welcome to Mosh City or something. That's a fucking loose quote, but yeah, like there's no way to do it at a metal show. There's no way to practice social distance. That's part of a metal show, is how close we all get to each other. And so I don't, until social distancing is no longer a thing, I not only do I not see a metal show happening, if it does, I don't see attendance. I mean, maybe, if some, big enough band plays a small enough venue, a bunch of people show up, but I don't know, man. I think we're, as much as I fucking hate to say this, I think we're in for the long haul with this one. Like,
yeah. It kind of goes back to, and we've had similar conversations about it before, but like it was that thing where we were, and I think it was with Lamb of God, we were talking about the rescheduling of the tour and stuff, and you said something about to the effect of like, oh, would you even really want to, or like how would you feel about being there and stuff, and it's really like the first time that you gotta kind of ask yourself that question.
Yeah.
Because it's a matter of like, just like situational, but it's also like, am I willing to put everything and everybody else at risk,
So
myself and everybody else at risk just for
for
a
me,
day.
for
Yeah.
me to go have a good time. Now, granted, for us, especially for people specifically like you and I, as metalheads, where this really is all we got. We don't really go out and we do these podcasts, and you and I will, if there's a cool movie out, we'll go see it together, but we're not really bar people. We're not club people. Like, we have a show or two a month typically, and that's it. So yeah, for it's real different.
Well, it's that, I mean, everybody, I mean, it's kind of what started this whole thing is just that sense of community, and it's at its core. And we being rather insiders, being rather introverted, for lack of a better term, sometimes that's the only thing that can motivate you to get out and to do anything like sociable other than just your regular daily bullshit.
Yeah.
And kind of like what you're saying, like, to not have that is a bit of a struggle, like, and especially when, like, to me, I like, it doesn't matter what it is. To me, it's I have an overall just appreciation of live music.
Yes.
I love just the live environment of music, like, just what it does, just the feeling of it, just in the air. Like, even if you're at just some place, like, I mean, we have tons of different, music fests in Lansing, whether it be Blues Fest or Jazz Fest or,
Common Ground.
Yeah. Up until recently, it's not Lansing, but Michigan Metal Fest. Like, there's just these different places, like, but it's all around Michigan, and so to a point, we're a very there's always that sense of, like, music. There's always that sense of community. There's always, something that's the one equalizer that kind of brings everybody together. And when you don't have that, it's hard to replace it. It's hard to imagine a world without that, And I always, and it's not so much that it's without music, because there's always, I mean, everybody's, during this time, like, you just create, it's a part of it, but it's also just, you're never going to get that feeling of just inspiration from anywhere else other than live music, from that sense of being around people that just share that with you. That's part of it. That's what we talk about a lot. And so I don't know, I try not to think about it too much as far as, like, how much it has changed, but it's hard to not, like, try to put it in perspective of, like, this could be something that we're looking at for for the future, and how do we go about doing something about it, really. So I don't know, it's weird that we're having this conversation. I mean, it's weird that all this is happening, but
and to even to add to your list that you were mentioning, I mean, this is a metal show. We are not particular fans of electronic music in any way, shape, or form. However, but what I am a fan of are things from Michigan.
Yeah.
And Michigan undeniably is one of the biggest influences of electronic music, and we have two of the biggest electronic music festivals in the world here, Electronic Forest and DEMF. And the Detroit Electronic Music Festival, both of those are already canceled for this year. So yeah, those are just two more examples of things that people come from all around the world, right here in our home state, to come here and experience. But and they are all not happening this year. And
Detroit Rock City, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is? I mean, like music, whether it's something that you're into stylistically or not, like music is a gigantic part of Michigan, and it's, I guess,
Oh,
kind of to the point where I haven't really like put it to.
cars and
Yeah.
music.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
That's what we are.
Yeah, we're the auto capital of the world, and we're the Detroit
One,
Rock City.
one Motown, baby.
Yeah, Motown. Yeah.
Like
Oh,
one of the music capitals of the planet.
yeah.
No question. No question.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's fucking.
It makes, and it's funny because we were watching and well, I guess once we get into it we'll kind of talk about this, but watching Murder in the Front Row tonight, I was kind of looking at it, I was like, man, like that is just something that is like I just miss it. You don't really realize you miss it until it's so far out of your reach. Like it's something that's like, I don't know if that's ever gonna happen and stuff, and like I don't know if like how long it's gonna be. And one of the things that got me was like, man, when it finally does, you have me on record saying this. Like I want to go to everything. I just want to be in it. Like I just miss that. And for the longest time, for the longest time, I always, you would decide one way or the other whether or not, like, if all is like, you had your reasons whether or not you would go to something. But like to me, it's not until you don't have that option is when you realize, like, fuck, like
it's time to go.
Yeah.
No, that's what I've been saying, dude, for the last 2 fucking years. Go to everything you can when you get the chance, because you don't know when it'll be your last chance. You don't know who's gonna die and when. You don't know when your favorite fucking people are gonna fucking check out. Like, you need to see everybody every fucking time you can, relentlessly. If you love this shit on the level that we love this shit, that's all there is seeing this shit fucking. That is our holy ground. That is our Mecca. That is the place we belong, and it's everything.
Yeah.
So,
dude, I was drawn to music and to drums specifically, just by seeing it live. So, in any kind of capacity. So.
Perfect fucking segue though into what we're talking about for this episode. I know we're 40 minutes in, but we had some shit to talk about at the beginning there. Ticketmaster, we had to talk about that. We had to talk about the article you brought to my attention about the venues. But now we are here to talk about the documentary. That's what this episode is about. Murder in the Front Row, brought to my attention by Dean Del Rey in the Let There Be Talk podcast. Check that shit out, because the Murder in the Front Row documentary, the story of the Bay Area thrash metal scene, is a brand new documentary released just like I believe April 24th, like 4 days ago. Yeah. And fucking...
Hang on, real quick. I'm going to let you explain this. I'll be right back.
Okay, bet. And fucking, it was based on there was a gentleman, I cannot remember his fucking name right now. I'm so sorry. I can't remember his name right now, but he's a photographer. He was a photographer, and he grew up in the Bay Area during the thrash metal scene. And he has some of the most incredible photographs and incredible photography that you can, if you're a fan of this music, that you can imagine. Some, like, images of the first time Cliff Burton ever practiced with Metallica. Like, shit that should be in a museum. This guy took, and he created at one point in time a coffee table photograph book, essentially, called Murder in the Front Row, based on the lyrics on the Bonded by Blood album by fucking Exodus. And then at one point, someone comes along and decides to turn it into a feature-length documentary. Another gentleman whose name I talked about on the last episode, people. I'm so fucking bad with names. I'm so sorry. I'm terrible with names. But both of these gentlemen have been on the Let There Be Talk podcast with Dean Del Rey. Look those episodes up. Please, please, please look them up. And the one with Kirk Hammett, because Kirk Hammett is a major player in this documentary. And those episodes are, when I started listening to them, I was like, oh, God, fucking hear this doc. I got to see this documentary. How do I see it? How do I see it? Got online, discovered you couldn't see it unless there was a showing. But eventually, on April 24th, it comes out on DVD. So I pre-ordered a copy. I highly recommend everyone Hold on. Is Aaron back yet? No. I highly recommend, though, everyone pre-order a fucking hard copy of this one. It comes with 2 posters, a sticker, and like an hour or 2 of fucking extra bonus features that are outstanding. So I highly recommend everyone getting a fucking hard copy of this one from Amazon.com. And there is another website, like MVP or MV something.com, that has it as well. But the hard copies we're checking out, or you can get it, you can rent it on Amazon Prime for $2.99, and I don't know how much it is on iTunes, but it is the story laid out of the Bay Area thrash metal scene, narrated by one of the best heavy metal comedians of all time, Brian Posehn.
Which I was like surprised that he did as good of a job as he did on it.
He did excellent, and I'm even more surprised. I'm even more surprised that he was on an episode of the Let There Be Talk podcast, and I don't remember them even mentioning that he narrated that. They talked about all kinds of other stuff. But here. So I just kind of introed it. Talked about how it was based. The documentary is based on a book, a coffee table photography book, called Murder in the Front Row, based on the lyrics by Exodus's Bounded by Blood. I guess here, real quick, because I want to, we're doing the episode, we're on a video, I should have had this prepared. I'm going to run upstairs and get it so I can show people what they get when they get the physical copy, all right?
For sure.
So just go ahead and start talking, give your little intro to it, and I'll be right back.
All
right.
Yeah, I guess my main thing, and like one of the bigger things that I saw about it was that it was really like speaking from a band, just from somebody that's in the current live or the current band era. It was cool, and I'm always interested in seeing the differences between like what happened in the 80s between like when the shifts between the grunge and like the hair metal era, or and so it was cool to kind of take the thrash style, thrash idea, and just the whole concept of the genre and what it did, and just solely like talk about that. Talk about, really mention a lot of like the front runners and a lot of the bands that are still around today. And I think one of the things that I mentioned was that we like they really could have gone 2 ways with it. I feel like at this point we've mentioned enough about the Metal Headbangers journey, and all of the banger stuff that's happened. Like that's a big influence on this show, but also but they definitely have talked about thrash metal on more than one occasion. But there was a lot of stuff in this that I saw and that I watched that I never even really knew about. Mostly about what the shows were like, which was the really exciting thing to me. Talking about what the environment was like, as far as like there was the vocalist from Exodus who oh nice, I didn't know they gave you a sticker. Who was basically like this dude that would like check you at the door. Basically kind of started that whole the whole idea of like poser bashing and all this stuff. And there was really that was a whole part of the just the real influence behind the the whole badass, attitude of what thrash metal was. And, it kind of started with punk music, and they sort of touched on that, but it was kind of more about like, where, like, what thrash metal did for metal instead of just like the comparison between thrash and punk. So yeah, I don't know. Like, it was, dude, like, I'm always, that is sick. I didn't really actually get a good look at that until now. I mean, like, I'm a sucker for seeing, different eras of music history. I'm a sucker for music history in general. Because I'm always so, yeah. I'm always so inspired by and just intrigued by how different things are now as compared to, what does that say?
When only the music mattered.
Yeah. That really sums it up pretty nicely, honestly. But yeah, I'm always interested in seeing what the scene was like, what the what it was all like, what the struggles were and stuff. And it was cool to hear them go in depth about what the tape trading era was, because I wondered what it was like at the time when not only to get a cassette from a band that you didn't know of called Metallica, to not know who Metallica was, but also to have this avenue of like pre-internet, pre-anything. Like, you had people making magazines and doing these different like mailing lists and tape trading and stuff that was all a part of what was growing the music scene. And now it's you can very much relate that to the digital age, which has changed damn near everything. But it's just like I couldn't imagine like subscribing to, well, I guess to a magazine. Like, well, I mean, yeah, you had that, but like I couldn't imagine like sending in for a cassette that I'd have to wait for a couple of weeks to have music on it from bands like Exodus and like all these bands that are gigantic now, that are like household names. And now it's like, it's so weird to think of like that's how people got their music at one point. Like, that was peer-to-peer sharing. That's how we knew of it, before downloading, before all that stuff happened. So it's just, I don't know, like, it's just, I love that they went into that and they talked about like, the what was the magazine? It was like Metal Assault or Metal something. It was
Metal Mania.
Yeah, Metal Mania.
Yeah.
It was that, and that was the big thing that was run by Brian Slagle, who now by Metal Blade, who is now
Founder.
the founder of Metal Blade. And it's just, I don't know, like and I'm always, whenever I watch documentaries and stuff like this, I'm always kind of taken back by it's not only is it it's like a weird like spiral in a sense. Like, it's one thing leads to another. It's one person talked to this guy who happened to be in this band, who started this band, but then they broke up and then they became like, it's just, I'm always like, I mean, Brian Slagle, like, looking at, I think we talked about it. There's a shot of it where he's standing with, I don't remember who it was, but he's standing with these two guys, and he looked like any other guy that could have been at any other local show in the area at the time. And now he's this guy that is like responsible for, I mean, countless bands, like any band you've ever really heard of. That's, I mean, you're sitting behind a band that's on Metal Blade right now. That's, it's like anything's possible, anything can happen. But it's just like it's so crazy that, and we talk about it with that one, the Defiant ones. That was the other one that kind of like, I feel like I could have closely put those two together, because it was very much a story of like, well, this person met this guy, and this was, they were in this band, but then this band broke up, and then they were in contact. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's wild to see how easy it is to like just the crossover and just how it's like the right place, right time for just anything.
I love how they took us through. They did a great job at taking us through what the Bay Area thrash metal scene was by taking us through the story of the bands themselves. By that, I mean exactly what you're talking about right now, in that Kirk Hammett started in Exodus and then got recruited to Metallica after they kicked out Dave Mustaine. Dave Mustaine, of course, went on to create Megadeth. Exodus went on to be fucking Exodus. And then, but later on, much later on, Gary Holt, the leader of Exodus, would end up in Slayer. You know what I mean? Like all these, exactly what you're talking about. They did a really great job at explaining what the scene was. That's the other thing. Is that the scene itself was the first time metal itself as a genre is virtually, it's still budding. It's still the founders of metal, the creators of metal, your Zeppelins, your Sabbaths, your Purples. These are not bands that ever called themselves metal or ever knew the term heavy metal. Not until we get to Judas Priest do we get that. So, arguably Alice Cooper, but not until we get to Judas Priest do we get that.
Well, there was Steppenwolf, if you want to get real, because they did have Born to Be Wild, and that was the first use of heavy metal.
Heavy metal, yeah, absolutely.
Historically.
Absolutely. But I believe though the line in that track was heavy metal thunder.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily saying a new music genre.
I'm always.
But you're right.
Yeah.
But you're right. I take nothing away from that. I'm just, yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
No.
No.
I'm so happy you brought that up because I forgot about that.
Yeah. Anyway.
So we get these bands aren't metal yet. They're not calling themselves metal until we get to glam metal. Then the bands, after Judas Priest starts waving the flag, then the glam metal bands are now glam metal bands. And thrash metal is the first time metal goes extreme for there was a point in time where Black Sabbath was extreme, but for this point in time, for post-glam metal era, thrash metal comes about in response. And it's the first time a real heavy, extreme form subgenre of metal was created. It then gives birth to death and black and deathcore and grindcore and pirate metal and Viking metal and fucking every other fucking kind of metal you've ever heard of.
Yeah.
Thrash really is the epicenter of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Without thrash, you never get to any of that.
Well, thrash is the speed, man.
Yes.
Like you can find that in, there's elements of that in death metal. There's elements of it in grind. There's without I feel like without bands like Slayer and just all these front runners that we're talking about, I don't feel like we'd have metal as we know it right now.
Slayer and Metallica.
Yeah.
No question.
Because they brought that speed that was missing.
Yes.
They brought that thing and that attitude that was missing from what was happening, and it's crazy to think that just one or two bands defined a genre and defined a sound and just a place in time, really.
I don't know if I'd say that. I'd say I mean, one or two bands. I mean, we got Metallica. And they even made the point in the documentary where the year that Metallica moved to the Bay Area, most of the time they were gone and on tour.
Yeah.
But so we got Metallica, Megadeth, not Anthrax. We got Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, Exodus, Death Angel. Fucking, where was, one band that was never, they didn't talk about was Venom. Weren't they
a UK band?
Were they? I don't know. I know their music. I don't know where they're from.
They did briefly talk about them, but it was in the sense of
they were a band that everybody liked.
Talking about like the wave, like there was like 3 different waves of the thrash metal, like the early days of thrash metal.
Okay. But yeah, it was just awesome to me how they
Venom real quick. Venom are from Newcastle, so
okay, that makes sense then. Yeah. It's just really awesome to me how though that they told the story through the lens of the band members themselves, and and that's how they also were able to explain the evolution of the scene. And the scene is what the documentary is really about.
Yeah.
In that this moment in the late 80s, after glam metal and right before grunge, there was this thing that happened in the Bay Area of San Francisco. And, in fairness, on the East Coast as well with Anthrax.
It was cool that they kind of they mentioned a lot of the bands that are sort of, I mean, with the exception of Megadeth and Metallica, they kind of mentioned some bands that were a little bit lesser known in a sense, but still very popular.
I mean, lesser known to the masses, but not people like you and I.
Yeah. That's kind of what I meant. Like, and there were certain points where I was watching it, and there were things about just I never knew how much of an impact Exodus actually had on thrash metal. Like, that was something that was cool to see, honestly.
What was that band? Who was the band that Corpse Grinder was in before Cannibal?
Monstrosity?
Monstrosity.
Yeah.
It's there. I mean, Exodus definitely achieved more than Monstrosity. Like, they are still Exodus. You know what I mean? Monstrosity isn't really a thing anymore, but they were kind of that thing. Like, for a minute there, Exodus like kind of fed the bigger band that is Metallica. But that's something to really keep in mind. Like, really. Like, this Exodus is still I mean, if you're okay, now I'm talking in metalhead language. If you're a fucking metalhead, Exodus is still more on the level of like a Slayer. You know what I mean? Like, they never, in our eyes, like they even say in the documentary, still never made a ballad. Metallica has.
Yeah.
So, to a metalhead, they're still the ones waving the flag and holding strong, whereas Metallica has wavered.
That's an interesting point, honestly, because that's something that they touched on a lot more, and I feel like that was more the main focus when they kind of wrapped up the thrash metal. I think I'm more probably thinking of the Metal Evolution episode about thrash metal, because they really, towards the end of it, they really hammered home the fact that, like, the Black Album happened, and then, like, just the real, like, downfall of it, of just the overall, like, thrash metal scene, which I don't feel like we got quite on this one. Like, this one felt like a passion project about thrash metal, just in general, as a whole, and just what it did for the scene. And even, like, I mean, it's hard to talk about, Exodus without mentioning the fact that, and for anybody that doesn't know, Gary Holt and Kirk Hammett both played for Exodus at one time. Yeah. And, we both, we all kind of know where that ended up. So it was just, I don't know,
And Paul Bailoff was the guy you were talking about earlier, the original lead singer.
Yep. And he was
the wild man.
Yeah, that dude was like, and you've seen that guy at every show you've ever been to.
He's
as well.
The guy, dude. He's the guy.
Yeah.
He's the guy you want to be.
Yeah.
Like that, just fucking pure wild man. That psychotic free. You like Iron Maiden, motherfucker? Run to the hills! Like, at a party. Like,
yeah.
That's, oh my God. I don't know if he would have liked Iron Maiden or not, but that was just my example.
So, I don't know. It just, like, I'm always, like I said, I'm always geeked about music history. Like, I'm always so interested in finding out where, like, what led to the sounds that we're so used to hearing now. Because there's, I mean, you know, Death Angel's still going. Testament's definitely still going. They just released the album a few weeks back. You know,
yeah. Yours is Death Angels is Titans of Creation.
Testament.
Or Testament. Sorry. Testament, yeah.
But either way, yeah.
Death Angel had an album last year, right?
Yeah.
That got nominated for a Grammy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the other cool part about this one, was that they really celebrated the recent achievements of thrash. Because Banger, like, that was kind of the problem that I had with it. If there was any one complaint about it, was that they kind of talked about it as if thrash metal didn't exist, or it just kind of like died off in a sense. But I don't feel like they ever really went back and like mention. I mean, I don't know. Like, you're looking at me like I'm wrong, and I could be wrong. I'm very positive I'm wrong, because I haven't seen those in a while. But
No.
They sort of just ended it differently. And I feel like they talked about, like, they focused on a few different parts that kind of rounded it off a little differently.
Well, yeah. I know. I agree with that. They framed it differently. They put it in a frame of a scene that had a beginning and ending, and didn't necessarily take into consideration the fact that it's arguably still the biggest metal genre in the world, with Metallica still being the biggest metal band in the world, and Slayer not far behind when you consider the recent farewell tours.
Mm-hmm.
This one definitely did it differently, but I would say that but that's because Banger they had to have that as a part and then move past it all in one documentary, whereas this is all just one about thrash. You know what I mean?
Mm. That's true.
But before we get to the ending, I do want to talk about some other things. One thing that I wanted to talk about, I guess I'll move this around a little bit. Basically, there was this scene in the Bay Area, and it was everybody, you know what I mean? It was Metallica, it was Slayer, it was Exodus, it was Death Angel, it was every fucking thrash metal band. This is where thrash metal was invented, like, and they all played at these. This is when they were local. This is Balgraith or Recorruptor or Max Bar in Lansing. That's what this was at this point in time. But instead of Max, it was at a place called Ruthie's. And Ruthie's, according
to
everyone that was there, that was the spot, yo. Like, that was where the violence happened, a quote from Gary Holt. Like, that's where the carnage became synonymous with a metal concert. And
when I saw like footage of it, I was like, oh dude, that's just Max. Like, that's just that's just what that is. Like,
and like the fact that they would literally, like, if there was a band that came on that was like rock and roll and not metal, they would turn their backs.
Oh dude,
I saw
I saw that and I was like,
turn their back to the stage.
Yeah. I saw that and I was like, oh man, that is brutal.
Imagine being on stage and seeing that.
I don't know what I'd do, to be honest with you. like
that is fucked up.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing is, you know, and that really showcased this on this documentary was the similarities between punk music and between thrash metal, because there is a lot of them, and that was one of the things. Yeah, that was one of the things, like, you know, was the crowd response to it, was the fan interaction to it.
Yep.
You know, like they're always talking about, like, people, like there's footage of just people like on stage and like crowd surfing and jumping off of things and like just full on like just snapshots of people like midair jumping off of stuff, and it's sick, but it's also like you really don't see that too much often anymore, and at least not
like that.
Yeah, nothing like that.
No.
Like I don't think that there's ever been a time where I've been at a show where it's been like that.
No.
Which it were like like very, very close to that, but not so much, because like the environment has changed, and that's the thing that's interesting to me about this, is like it was a snapshot into what shows were like at that time, and then you kind of relay it back to the last couple of, like, you know, even just like smaller shows that you've been to that are like, you know, think of the craziest show that you've ever been at. Is like, does it equal up to that, or is it kind of like, is it that in a different way? Because I feel like there's a different, like there's a big difference between what is chaotic now and what was crazy during. Because I mean, back in that time, like, you know, back in like 80s and stuff, like there was, you know, just anybody could get on stage, like anybody could, you know, this was before. You know, before Dime, before all that stuff, like before people actually started thinking about what was happening, which was another part of this, kind of in a smaller part, but it was, you know, they definitely mentioned just how things changed because of a few certain events and stuff. So
absolutely, no, yeah, no, I mean, look, yes, there are. I mean, look, shows like this. Okay, here's the thing, is that I feel like sometimes, and I felt the same way you did until I started to think, like I thought the exact same thing, and then I started to think about it a little bit more, and here's where I ended up. It's you and I are sitting here now looking back at that going, holy fucking shit, that was chaos. And it was facilitated chaos. And then, but then it happened again with Pantera. It happened again with Slipknot. It happened again with Lamb of God. Like, it continues to happen throughout metal history. So there are always, I feel like no matter how much things change, there's always going to be those, there might, at least for the time being, will always be those places, those little places where fucking that kind of shit can happen. Gazoon tried. The fucking allergies, man. But yeah, like it showed that elevated scene. But like for thrash metal, but then we've seen the same video footage 20 years later for Slipknot in Iowa. In Iowa! So, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's always, like you just said, Ruthie's look like Max. That shit is possible still at Max.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's all about the band, the music, the show, the environment, and the scene. The scene. And that's what we're missing here in Lansing. Well,
to me, it's always been like, and that's, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about, I mean, what is metal? what is heavy music other than an outlet and escape, a and a way to express the extreme. And there's always going to be, and that's one of my favorite parts of the Headbangers Journey documentary. I don't remember who said it. It might have been Rob Zombie, but he was always talking about, like, there's as long as there is a place where you need that outlet, you need that energy for something, there's always going to be that kid that is writing that song in his room somewhere, like, to be the next thing that carries it forward. And I feel like what we've always talked about was, the constant evolution of everything. And, like, to me, thrash metal was really at a certain point, it was the most extreme music that there was.
Yes.
Like, that was really the first time when music was dangerous. It was dangerous to go to a show. It was like you could,
I mean, it was physically dangerous.
Yeah.
Physically dangerous. I mean, there's no doubt that glam metal introduced sex, drugs, rock and roll. That was danger in that time. Thrash metal introduced physical danger. Thrash metal, that scene in the Bay Area, in my opinion, is when metal became metal. Before that, it was going through, it was being born and coming to its own. Thrash metal is the first time that it came into its own, which might be a crazy thing to say for some people, because when glam metal was fucking popular, it was the biggest music on the face of the earth. Mm-hmm. It was number one on all the charts and blah 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 and this and that. Yeah. So, but thrash metal is when the things that happened in that Bay Area, the things that happened in that scene, are traditions that you and I still do today at every show.
Yeah.
There wasn't no fucking mosh pit in a glam metal show, but there was at a thrash metal show. And guess what we do at every show? We mosh. We put the horns up. We fucking bang our fucking heads until our necks break. We scream until our throats burst out of our bodies. Like, it's fucking chaos. And that chaos does never, ever exist in metal until thrash metal. It is when metal became metal.
I could, yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
To me.
There's definitely, and I mean, I don't know, like, I guess you'd have to kind of figure out where everything else lies, because, like, maybe that was I mean, to your point, that was the place where the live element of things came into play. Because before it was, I mean, I don't know, it's hard to really say.
Before it was nothing but a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. And
now we're fucking taking this truth. Like,
yeah. Well, it's always interesting to me, because you can even see the parallels now between, like, thrash metal led into death metal, which led into, like, let's say deathcore, for lack of a better example.
Yeah, deathcore, death, what the fuck ever. It was thrash metal, death metal, and then everything else from there. Because I never get to melodic death metal without death metal.
Yeah. Well, I really feel like, I mean, there's always elements of, yeah, like, there's even in modern day stuff that has come out within the last 5 to 10 years. Yeah. Sorry. Thrash, there's thrash metal elements in everything.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what it is.
Especially stuff from Michigan. Especially Dahlia. Especially your Battlecross.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
Big time.
Yeah. So as long as that is in there, as long as there's an influence for that, I mean, every you hear all the time, like, any metal band ever rips off riffs from Slayer, rips off riffs from Black Sabbath, or like Doom metal is basically just Black Sabbath in a genre. Like,
No,
maybe that's a hot take, but
no.
But I don't know. The point being is that there's always that attitude, and there's always going to be a part of thrash, because thrash was the speed, man. Like that was the first time that bands got fast. Like that was the main point, was just play faster than any other band.
And now
what were you saying?
That was one of my favorite parts about the fucking documentary, is the part where after Mustaine got kicked out of Metallica and he started Megadeth, and someone came to him and was like, I hope everything you play is faster than Metallica. And then Dave Ellison was like, the next practice, everything went from like fucking totally changed up the time signature on it. It made everything way faster, and that's the Megadeth we now know and love. Holy walleyes!
I wonder if, because like right now, and maybe this is kind of a segue into the next thing that we watched, but maybe not, I don't know, it's a different sound, it's a different genre, but well, I don't know, not really, I guess, I don't know, but I guess
metal, baby.
Yeah. That's how I see it. But just like, metal and heavier and extreme music is always in response to something, I feel like, where I've seen it throughout history. Like you always see, heavy metal, and then there was, that carried it out for a while, and then like, before, during all of that, there was, like, you had your like disco era, and then thrash metal was in response to that, and then
glam.
Yeah, and it was just kind of like, the youth, like, fuck you kind of mentality to it, and it really brought that attitude into it. And now it almost seems like everything since then has kind of been the same way in a lesser kind of degree, but I feel like people are taking more of the elements of just what is happening at the current time and putting it into what they're doing. Like you can't have, and I don't know. I feel like we're kind of splitting hairs here, but like you can't have what deathcore is now without what thrash metal was. Like you can't have that sort of attitude without the fact that thrash existed. Like
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Without thrash, we never get to any of these other. Thrash was and that's what I mean. That's what I mean, because look, and we've said it. Pardon me. We've said it a million fucking times on this podcast. The subgenres, all these words that we use, deathcore, grindcore, pirate metal, Viking metal, all these fucking, the metal family tree, it is very good and very useful for being an adjective for conversation. And by that I mean, when we're talking, when metalheads are talking metal and we're getting down in the fucking woods and we're getting fucking technical with it, to the average person, Poison and Metallica are both metal. So what is the difference? Well, one's glam metal, one's thrash metal. That's why we have these subgenres as an adjective, as a word, as words used to describe different sounds that we hear. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, there ain't no fucking for you and I, at least, there isn't any like we're only fans of this or that, you know what I mean? There isn't elitism. There's none of that. But we love it all. So that's why these terms even like exist and are relevant, because we can use them to describe different sounds that we hear within this overall genre of heavy metal.
Mm-hmm.
I fucking forgot why I started talking about that. God damn it. But so it's fucking that's just it. I guess that's just it though. Like it's fucking
I guess the thing that started off was I was talking about how it was all like in response to something. Like thrash metal was in response to glam metal, and then you were saying
but it's still all metal. But it's still all metal.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And fucking it's yeah, man. Like, and that's where all these subgenres, and it was in response to glam metal, and that is the first time. So glam metal, and what is it a response to? Not necessarily the genre. It's not necessarily in response to the type of music. What it's in response to is the fact of how it essentially became pop music. It became pop music.
Commercial. Yeah.
Commercial. Exactly. Yeah. And it also lacked, like, if you go back to the beginning of glam, there was some heaviness. There was some real heaviness.
Mm.
Jumping right off of Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath. But then, as it got more commercial, it definitely got more fucking just, we're barely using guitars.
Yeah.
Fucking, so that became a problem. So that's what thrash metal, and then it becomes the first ever extreme form of metal. Dude, that part in the fucking documentary where it literally had the camera on a fucking old ass boombox and had a tape, that original Metallica tape in there playing.
Mm.
Yeah, the way that fucking shit sounded in that boombox, like fucking. Imagine having never heard anything like that and hearing that. The way it sounded in that boombox is not how I could get it to sound in my fucking car.
Yeah.
It sounded so much more raw
off
that thing, like on that tape. Like,
that's
like,
yeah.
Whoa.
I'm kind of putting it together now, but it's weird and follow me here, because this is kind of a weird segment, or kind of a weird like left turn. But like, I don't know, just in thinking about the way that like thrash metal was in response to glam metal, like, you know, you could say that like early black metal is kind of the same way, because it went from being very raw and being in response to, like, you know, like the church burnings and just all of the stuff, and just wanting to be more extreme than the next band, and then it went to being this kind of more like I don't know if I don't know if accessible is the right term, but it kind of became this thing that you would just consider as heavier music, just more extreme music, which turned into how we can see black metal now.
As thrash metal became more accessible, it gave birth to death metal and black metal pretty much at the same time.
Yeah.
Those were the first budgeonings of the tree.
I mean, they
split into a million things.
Yeah. It's almost weird. It's almost weird that we got all of those just off of thrash metal, like, because thrash metal gave us the speed, man.
Yes.
Like, it was, and that was even a part of, I don't know if you watched that Slave to the Grind documentary I sent you.
I have not yet, but I will soon.
I haven't finished it. I want to go back and rewatch it and kind of finish it. But like that was one of the things that they were talking about was like thrash metal is already fast. Like we just like it was the blast beat that made it faster, and that's what differentiates it from thrash metal into grind, you know. But it's all like to kind of go back to, you know, like to my point was, you know, it's weird that everything is a response to everything else. Like, and you almost see that now, but to kind of a weirder, like lesser degree, because
a little bit less now.
Yeah, like I don't remember like what is the last one that, I mean, like it's almost like there are certain bands that come out that change, like I don't know, that just like add certain things to the genre that either are just like experimental or just, you know, like it's harder to like pin it to anything.
I mean, has there been in the Jesus Christ?
Like we're getting real deep into it, I guess.
I mean, yeah, no kidding. I can't believe I'm about to say. I cannot believe this sentence is about to come out of my mouth. Has there been in metal? Has there been anything bigger in the last? And this is the part that I can't believe. In the last 20 years. In the last 20 years, Aaron, has there really been a bigger subgenre than nu metal?
A nu metal?
Has anything taken? I mean, because Slipknot's still huge, Korn is still huge, Tool is still huge, even though they're not metal.
That's almost a different conversation.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying though. It's like who was like there was nu metal, and then the sort of response was the new wave of American heavy metal, which you could put Lamb of God and Devil Driver into, which was like the burgeoning branches. Like instead of going the hip hop way, they went the Pantera way. You know what I mean? Which is there are clear branches there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think, and honestly, what I think ultimately happened, I think the reason why there hasn't been is because it was at that point in time that the internet took off. And that is when YouTube took off. And that is when MySpace, and then Facebook, and then all the social medias, and everything. So that is the first time in history where all of a sudden there was room for all. Now, all of a sudden, you don't have to be the next glam metal, the next thrash metal, the next nu metal. Now, you can have 10,000 fucking fans and never be played on the radio. And have people sell out every one of your concerts and never be heard on the radio, or never be a part of that next wave genre. I almost feel like maybe that's kind of what we experienced when we thought in the early 2010s, after, you know, like after, I mean, the way I base it as a fan, after Wrath, after the album Wrath came out. Fucking that there was almost like a lull, but maybe that lull was really just readjusting to this new landscape, in that now you're not going to have new budgeting genres. You're just going to have a million fucking genres to choose from, and all of them are going to have a fuck ton of fans, and you can be one of them.
I think to your point, I think what the internet and what MySpace did was it allowed artists and allowed bands to like do things without really like trying to really be different, in a sense. Like, if that makes sense, like it gave anybody a chance to do anything without even really like putting to like, because when I guess the main, because when I think of the biggest point of how how the internet changed the music industry, or at least heavier music, was I immediately, for whatever reason, I always go to deathcore, because I feel like without the internet and without bands like, like Suicide Silence, and without, Job for a Cowboy, and without band like these bands that were doing something different within heavier music, well, like without that, I don't feel like,
you just made a really good point.
Like it's weird because, I mean, where does it sit really?
That was after nu metal. What you just said was the next wave, because that was the first wave of the internet. What people like you and I refer to as the hot topic bands. You know what I mean? Your As I Lay Dyings, your Job for a Cowboys. You know what I mean? Some of them were brutal and heavy as fuck. Yeah. But your Five Finger Death Punches, and that was and Five Finger ended up pretty much becoming the headliner of all that. Even though Slipknot still really kind of has reign in that genre.
And that's, I mean, this is kind of a whole other conversation, but like, do you consider Slipknot not death metal, because they're not?
No.
Do you consider them still nu metal? Do you think that they're still nu metal?
No.
Yeah, I don't either.
I mean,
I would.
It depends what you call nu metal.
I mean, we're
splitting hairs now.
Yeah. Jesus.
If nu metal means heavy metal music with turntables, then yes. Because they still had two turntables on the newest album.
Yeah. But they don't have the hip hop influence. And to me,
not anymore.
That's what made nu metal.
I kind of agree with that. But somehow they became the leaders of that so-called subgenre.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. We're splitting hairs here. But ultimately, all we're doing is all this is us trying to describe the sound itself.
Exactly.
We're just trying to find the words to describe what we're hearing.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, and that is why having all these different names of subgenres, as ridiculous as it is, and as fun as it is to make fun of it, it does serve that purpose.
Yeah. Well, because when you look for something like atmospheric, symphonic black metal, like there's this specific, like, oh yeah, check out this band, this band, like blackened death, like thrash,
dog, pirate,
pirate metal,
Viking,
and like what's
Norwegian.
Yeah. Like what's so cool about that, and mostly just what's cool about just the, like where the digital age has taken us is, and I guess to kind of wrap it around the, the thrash metal was that was what they had at the moment. That was what they, what they had at the time was tape trading and mailing lists and other things. And now what we have is Facebook pages and Instagram and all of these different, like some, like they're
camp.
Yeah. Like there are so many pages that are dedicated to just serving the artist, serving the music, and you can really find anything that you're looking for specifically, which is something that I feel like not only were we kind of, I don't know, we like prefix or whatever, but like what was missing, I guess, was the variety. And I feel like now reaching another like 10, 20 years past like the initial start of thrash metal and extreme metal as we know it, is just the variety of what we have at our just fingertips, really.
Yes.
Like just what we have just to look up. Like it is crazy that like you can think of a sound that you like, that you know, that you're like or just a band that you're like, I want to hear more of that. Okay, look this up. There's like any day of the week, any time you can look up bands that sound like that band that you like, that you listen to. You're like,
Yep.
it just there's a endless amount of content, of sound that just sounds exactly like that. And I feel like, and it's weird that I never made that connection between thrash metal and extreme metal, but it's really like you almost can't talk about it without mentioning that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It gave birth to it, in my opinion. Like, especially after this documentary pretty much immediately became as important to me as Metal: A Headbanger's Journey by Banger TV, as the Cannibal Corpse, Century of Torment, or whatever it was called, Decade of Torment documentary, like the Anvil documentary, like all like the most important to me as a fan metal documentaries. This one immediately ranked among that list.
That's how
because because it told a story of a scene, and man, that's the thing, is that the scenes, that's the bummer. That's the one bummer, is that the scenes have now moved to online. They're not as much in person anymore. There's not as much. Sometimes it feels like there's a larger community than ever because it's online, but then sometimes it feels like there's a lesser community than ever because you don't fucking know anybody locally, or hardly know anybody locally that's fucking into it. You know what I mean? Like, it's fucking... Yeah. It's kind of both things at the same time, but... So yeah, then in this documentary, we go through the fucking... They do a great job at explaining the scene through... It begins with the story of Exodus and Metallica. And then
I'll be right back.
No, go ahead. And then it moves through a lot of the other things we've already talked about. And then we get to while Metallica is on tour in Europe, I believe, fuck me, I can't remember where they were. Maybe Norway, somewhere in one of those northern European countries, one of those cold ones, because it was snowing. The bus got into an accident, and Cliff Burton did not survive the accident. That is when Metallica lost Cliff Burton. That is when the documentary gets us at this point. We've spent much of this episode building up and talking about the scene that existed in the Bay Area. It was a family. In a big bad way. This was... These people were all family. It was... Don't be fake. If you're fake, you can't get in. But if you're in, you're in. And when you're in, you're family. And when Cliff Burton died... That is the first big loss that this scene that ultimately was a family suffered. So, and that was I mean,
it's weird. I mean, to your point, it's weird that, because I had the thought when I was watching it where it was like, it was almost like that was kind of the turning point where it became like you almost had to think about things like that, like, because before it was like this free spirited kind of mentality of go anywhere, do anything, kind of a deal. But then when tragedy strikes, and I feel like it was almost the same thing with Dime. With the whole thing, like that changed security measures. I'm sure. Like I was was rather young at the time when that happened, but like which is why it's maybe that's a little bit why it's hard to picture like the differences between like shows then and shows now. Because when you watch back at that, like there are shows when there's like who's running this, like there's nobody, like everybody's just on top of each other, like just doing anything, like anybody's on stage doing anything. And now it's very like stable, secure, like at least you hope. And so yeah, it's just, I don't know, to kind of your point, like what you were saying, it's just there's things that happen, I feel like, and well, that was from a bus crash, but it got everybody kind of thinking about, like, the mortality of this and just how serious touring is, and just the seriousn's of it all.
No one considered it really. I mean, especially, you're considering these are the headliners. These are the boys from that scene. You know what I mean? This small little scene out in the Bay Area. And they're out in the world now. And then something happens like this, and they had, what was it called? Please tell me I have it written down. Hold on. God fucking damn it, I don't have it written down. Well, do you remember the name of the record store they all hung out at?
I don't.
The one James Hetfield hung out at was Middle Earth, but there was another one that I cannot fucking... God damn it. I hate myself.
Fuck. In any case, though.
But yeah, watch the documentary. You'll see it. And like they even talk about it, like after Cliff died. And they had Cliff's fucking dad in the documentary. Like,
dude, I thought that was so cool.
That was so fucking cool, dude. Yes. And they that's where the scene, once he passed, that record store was where a lot of people hung out. That was their home. And that's where a lot of people found out. And that's where a lot of people spent time, you know what I mean, to grieve. Because he was like the wild man of the Bay Area. He kind of represented the entire Bay Area. At least that's the way the documentary presented it. And he was on all the best Metallica albums. Like, let's be real.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Man, like, God. So definitely wanted to mention that. They go into that in the documentary. It was really well done. Mm-hmm. And then the documentary kind of moves into like the Slayer. After that, they kind of move into like the Slayer story. Mm. They move into more so the Megadeth story.
Yeah.
And then they go into, wait, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say that when like the very I like you mentioned Slayer, which is why I thought of it, but just the opening part of it where everybody's introducing themselves and they get to Kerry King and he's like, man, I don't need to introduce myself. You guys know who I am.
Anybody watching this knows who I am because you're a fucking Slayer.
Yeah, everybody knows who you are. Yeah. So I just thought that was funny. I was like, yeah, any of them I knew, really. Like,
oh yeah. Oh my God, we know Slayer.
I always wonder about. I'm not sure if is it Rob Trujillo who plays bass for Metallica now.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to pronounce exactly his last name, but yeah, I know. Yeah.
But anyway, like I always wonder how just the like what it was like to kind of fill that space, because not only was he playing, but that was the kind of the cooler part of that towards the end of it was they were talking about, and a lot of it had to do with Metallica, obviously. because they were a big part of it. But I always wonder, like, because it was. I mean, but before him, it was Newstead,
Jason
James Newstead. Jason Newstead. Yeah, and then what's up? What were you saying?
Was it really?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure if he was before him or if he was a couple before him, but I think he was the replacement for Cliff. Maybe, possibly. I don't know. I know there's people watching this going like, shut up. You don't know anything.
Dude.
I really don't know, honestly.
Yeah, no, it looks like you're right. Okay, hold on. So, following Burton's death, the group began searching for new bases. They considered and auditioned over 50 musicians. Newstead was the last in line and ended up winning the part. So, yeah, you're right.
Mm. But I guess to what I was saying, like, I always wonder how do you deal with something like that? Like, how do you manage to, because in the documentary he was playing the solo, like he was playing Cliff's bass solo, which is no small accomplishment. Like, it's no small feat, really. And I always wonder how that just, like, how do you deal with that kind of thing? Like, how do you, knowing that you have such a big space to fill? I mean, I guess you could say that about any person that's been replaced in the band after a certain amount of time, but like, this is, Cliff Burton was Metallica, was the bassist for Metallica. Like, he's the guy that you think of, at least for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, you could say the same thing about Bon Scott too.
Yeah.
And it's fucking. Yeah, man. It's big shoes to fill. But there's no question that Metallica continued success, massive success. Probably, with the Black Album, they achieved bigger success than they ever did. So,
yeah. I think the one thing that to kind of wrap it around, the one, I guess the two compare, I guess just the comparison I had between, the banger, all the banger stuff that I've seen about Thrash and then this one was that they ended it on a bit of a high note, because the bands that are still relevant are the bands that kind of started it in a way. And I feel like that's a big part of why we're still talking about why Thrash is such a big part of metal, why it's such a big part of the genre, because you have, other than, with the exception of Slayer, obviously, but they even stood the test of time with the albums they put out, with the farewell tours that they did. There's
multiple legs of the same tour.
Yeah. But the farewell tour, I guess I'll put it, and then there's, Metallica is still going, Exodus in one way or another is still going. Like, I like the fact that they end it on the note of, like, it's still going. Like, it hasn't ever really gone away. It's just kind of, it's still just maintained itself.
I would even argue that it is now, for the first, in more, not all the way, okay, but in more recent years, it has started getting more of the respect that us as fans feel it has always deserved. With the Death Angel got nominated for a Grammy last year. Megadeth won a Grammy in 2015. Exodus's Gary Holt is now in Slayer, post Jeff Henneman. It's now, it's I feel like, at the very least, while all the other extreme subgenres of heavy metal are still looked down upon, thrash metal has broken through that ceiling and is now considered a legitimate form of music, and in a big bad way because of Metallica, like them or not. So, yeah, without them, we never get to Slipknot or Five Finger or Linkin Park or any of the other Korn or any of the other extra Parkway Drive, any of the other extra heavy bands that have broken through to get on the radio, to get to the masses, to get to interject themselves into pop culture. You know what I mean? Like, it's fucking on that level. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen without Metallica. And as much as I have my feelings about them, the fact of the matter is the first album that I ever purchased a physical CD of and played it so many times on my CD player that the laser burned scratches into the disc to the point where it could not be played anymore. That first album for me was Master of Puppets. I played that fucking album so many goddamn times, top to bottom. Trun, dun, trun, 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 trun. Like, fucking Besseray! Like, oh my god, dude, are you fucking...
Yeah.
This day. This day.
Yeah, man. You put that song on, I'm like, oh, dude, it's war. Like, it's...
Seek and destroy!
Yeah.
Like, there are undeniably Metallica-made songs that have not only stood the test of time, still make you... like...
One of my favorite songs from them is "Who in the Bell Tolls."
Oh,
I like it. There's something about that song, mostly like just how it was recorded, and just like the power behind it that is so heavy, and it's so cool to me. Like, I'll always love that song.
It's so massive.
Yeah.
It's as close as thrash will ever get to Iron Maiden. I mean,
yeah. I mean, yeah.
That's kind of what that is. Like, oh my god, dude! Like, whoa! When you really think about those tracks, like, undeniable. Like, and those were Megadeth, Metallica. You know, those were some of the first bands. Those were some of my bridge bands that got me into the rest of everything else. You know what I'm saying? If I never get shown Metallica and Megadeth by my uncle, then I never get into Cannibal, Anthrax, Exodus, Death Angel, or any of the other thrashers, or Maiden, or fucking Priest, or you know what I mean? Like, Metallica and Megadeth. And I think that is probably the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway. I honestly break it down. I think that's probably the biggest fucking takeaway for thrash metal. There's no question Metallica is the biggest metal band ever in history. Metallica alone made it bigger than all of glam metal. Thrash metal is the biggest form of metal, therefore, in history. Fucking... So, yeah, I mean... without that, you never get to anything else. Like... All of it. From Metallica to fucking... They, you know... They're kind of the ones that achieved that, but... It's kind of undeniable. It's just undeniable, man.
Yeah.
It's undeniable between them and then you look at fucking. Do me a favor. Do me a favor real quick and go back and listen to fucking Random Blood. Undeniable. Yes.
Yeah.
Like South of Heaven, I listened to that earlier today. Like Holy Wars. God damn it! Like, dude. Thrash metal. Everybody always, even I in this episode have said glam metal was the biggest. At one point in time, metal was the biggest form of music in the world, and it was glam metal. It's really been thrash metal.
Yeah.
Because of Metallica. Lady fucking Gaga played with Metallica. Like,
I would say maybe to a lesser degree death metal, because I feel like death metal is the genre of the last 20 years. Maybe possibly.
You certainly never get to death metal without thrash metal.
Yeah.
But you never get to any of the other extremes without death metal.
Yeah. Maybe
ever.
Yeah. Maybe it wasn't until like the how like excessive. I don't even really like using that when I talk about them, but like Cannibal Corpse. It wasn't really until them that it got to be like this kind of extreme music is. But even so, like maybe I don't even know. I'm not even gonna say what I was thinking. But
they're definitely not. No, it's definitely still not an accessible form of it. It's not I don't know. I guess to me at least, it's not accessible until it's on radio.
Yeah.
That's what I consider accessible music to the masses, at least. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know, but that's how I look at it. So that's how I, whenever I say that, that's the context I'm saying it in.
So where does Parkway Drive fit into this for you? Subtle segue.
Parkway.
Because they, to me, were a part of, like they were almost like, but somewhere between like deathcore and metalcore. Like they were like kind of like As Ollie Dying, kind of like deathcore in a sense, but like.
Okay, real quick, hold on.
I don't know if that's too rough of a segue, but...
No, it's fine. And the reason why you're making it, let's explain to people. The reason why you're making that segue is because tonight we watched Murder in the Front Row and the new documentary from Parkway Drive, Viva La Underdogs. And we're literally about to end this episode in a minute and then start the new episode about the Parkway Drive documentary. But real quick...
Okay. My bad.
No, you're good. Before we close out, though, I do want to mention three final thoughts I have about the Murder on the Front Row. Besides the fact that it's an incredible documentary with everybody in it. The Slay Team. Wasn't that with Exodus? Exodus's Slay Team?
Yeah.
They're the ones who would do things like if you came to their show in a Motley Crue t-shirt, that Motley Crue t-shirt would be ripped off your body and you'd be thrown out of the fucking show because you're a fucking poser and posers must die. Like, and I just want to say this about that. Like, a lot of people view that as extreme and they're like, but for me, it's like that was a point in time where metal was growing and literally there were growing pains. Like, they were trying to break away from that glam metal stereotype. And they were trying to do their own thing. They were trying to be something new. So if something was not that new thing, then it was poser. So at that point in time, for the purpose of the thrash metal genre, at that point in time specifically, I think the fact that they did that was awesome. And I wish I could have been a part of it. And
sometimes, yeah, to a
point. That's part of the scene that I wish still kind of existed in certain ways. But I also think that it's good that that doesn't exist anymore. Because now we exist in a scene where it's all accepted. And metalhead's a metalhead. And if you're there at the show, then you're part of the family. And that's what's most important, is people being at the shows, people buying the music, people listening to the music and being fans of the music. So that's kind of where we, at least me, and I think you, and a lot of our friends in our scene here in Lansing have gotten to the point of where, like, I know that I listen to weird music. If you listen to weird music and some of it's the same, awesome, but it's totally fine if you listen to some other weird shit that I don't necessarily get into. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's all weird, but it's okay too. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
it's it's good that kind of doesn't exist anymore, but it's also, to me, really good that it did exist at one point in time. That kind of mentality of fuck the posers must die.
Yeah.
I love it. And there was a point in time when someone in high school called me a poser.
Yep.
And let's just say they regretted that decision.
I don't know. It makes me laugh because I feel like it keeps, like, even to this day, it almost keeps you honest.
Yeah.
But it also like it's not, there's not so much weight to it, where it's like, if you like this kind of music, like, you're diehard with it, and it's a part of you. But there's also, like, I mean, there's even still certain things where it's like, really, you listen to that, but it's not like I'm gonna beat you up and take your chucks and kick you in the face because.
No, yeah, and you might, and if you're close enough to that individual, you might even be like, you know what, maybe I'll give it a second chance.
Yeah.
But there is a new thing we have to deal with, where it's like, you might see someone in public with a Slayer shirt on, and they don't listen to Slayer.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
You motherfucker. I'll cut that shit off of you. Fucking Slayer! Fucking motherfucker. If you're wearing a Slayer shirt and I give you the horns and you give me a weird look, we're gonna have a problem. We're gonna have a problem. That's all I'm gonna say. But so yeah, there was that. So it still kind of exists right there. There we go. It still kind of exists. Then the other thing I wanted to mention was, we mentioned Ruthies. I want to mention Dan the Green real quick. Dan the Green, if you were to draw an equivalent for us people here in Michigan, I mean, for us right now, it's Michigan Metal Fest. Like, it was a festival that went on for many years. I believe it started in the 70s and went through the 80s. So it, like, gained a lot of traction. It was a really big festival, especially in that area. And when Metallica got put on the bill, that was the moment. That was thrash metal's. That was when thrash metal became the biggest metal scene in that area, probably. You know what I mean? Like, that was, that was equivalent to,
That was thrash metal's Woodstock
Like, what if,
in a
like,
sense.
like we mentioned earlier, how we here in Michigan have some of the biggest electronic music festivals in the country with Electronic Forest and Dempf. Imagine if Electronic Forest was a metal festival, and imagine if Bogwraith headlined that. Like, that's as close as we can kind of relate to the things we have now to what that would be. You know, it's not something that would necessarily gain national attraction, but you would instantaneously become legends in this state forever. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So it's that level. And for a thrash metal band, for the first ever extreme form of metal band that exists, one of them in the scene, to reach that height, that's what it would be for us. That's what it would be for us if you headline some fucking massive show here, Michigan Metal Fest, or whatever. You know, if you did, if Bogwraith did, or if Recorruptor did, or if any of the bands that we know, that we're friends with, that we're in the scene with, that's what it would be. And yeah, man. So that was just something I wanted to mention as an aspect of that scene that I thought was very special. Look, you got your roofies, and you got your Day on the Green. And the in-depth backstory they go into in the documentary on roofies that I'm not going into here, the owner of it, how he came to be, who he was, and how he got to the point where he wanted to facilitate this scene. He saw what it was.
Yeah, that was one of the other takeaways from it, was that he was part of like the blues scene.
Yes,
he was a guy that was really into blues music, and at his venue he gave it a chance, and he was like, I was kind of the point where he's like, I've never seen anything like this. Yeah, but he was open to it and stuff, and that was cool because, and what because it's no secret that blues music and heavy metal have their roots and have their have their staples in each other and stuff. You can't really have one without the other. No, that was something I was taught from an early age. But in any case, I don't know, it was just because they even mentioned that they were like, I don't know what he saw in what we were doing, but he appreciated it for what it was and stuff. And it's just, it kind of said, it kind of told me like, the venues and the venue in itself is as much a part of the show as the artist is.
Dude, yeah. And that's one of the points they made in the documentary, is that there was no differentiating between the band and the crowd. They were all one and the same.
Yeah.
And it was the first time that sort of thing had ever really happened in music, where because they didn't have barricades. Everybody was just running up on the stage and jumping off of it in fucking total fucking chaos. Yeah. And that's what it was. So that gave way to that bred the atmosphere for this environment to create that enabled this scene to exist. And man, like this is the most beautiful part of the documentary to me, was the explanation of the scene itself, because it's something we've talked about on the podcast before, that look, dude, I go to the local shows here in Lansing. I see the turnout. I see how people flip the fuck out for these bands. Like,
yeah,
there is a thirst. There is a want. There are the people here in this city for there to be a scene. But there needs to be a location and a band or a band for them to really rally around, for that to be the hub. There needs to be a hub. And right now there's no hub.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Beautiful, though. The way they explained it in the documentary was absolutely stunning. Last thing, though, I really want to talk about with the documentary is in the part where you haven't seen yet, because you haven't gotten the hard copy yet.
Oh,
yeah. But I was watching some of the extras, the extra features, and one of them talked about, it's just, I haven't watched them all yet. Maybe if you order that shit soon and you watch the extra features within the next couple of weeks, maybe we'll do another episode just talking about them. But because there's a lot, there's like a solid another hour.
All right.
But one of them was talking about how, like, at that point in time, you know, like, a lot of the bands that we consider big now were over in Europe or whatever and weren't touring the United States, so they couldn't get t-shirts and stuff. So they would just draw. They would get blank t-shirts and they would just draw on them. And, like, some people were so good at drawing on them, other people would pay them for those shirts. And it just made me think, like, when I was moving out of my parents' house this most recent time, I found an old shirt, an old Vaccination shirt, which was the band that Preston and I started, that we had literally drawn. Like, it was a blank gray shirt, and we had drawn everything on it. It was all drawn on with Sharpie, and we ironed on some bullshit ass patch that had nothing to do with anything. And, like, I was like, oh my God, like, it, like, we actually, like, on a so much of a smaller level, we actually did some of the same things that they did without even knowing it. Like, between burning copies of our CD and handing them out to people, between, like, going to Kinko's and printing off flyers and throwing them down the hallway in the high school, like, we did all that. Mm-hmm. Like, we did everything we could to be as big as we could in that little fucking town. And it was ultimately all that these other bands did, just on a much larger scale. And so seeing them talk about having drawn on band shirts just made me go, oh my God, I did that too. Like, and I didn't even know anybody else did that. Like, that's fucking, I don't know, it just blew my mind. So I wanted to mention it.
Yeah.
It was in the extra features. So do you have any closing statements about Murder in the Front Row?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think we pretty much covered it. I like the fact that the thing about Slayer with the makeup stuff, and it took them 2 shows, and eventually people were like, "Yeah, you can't do that here."
Yeah.
Like,
and it was just eyeliner.
Yeah. Like, it was just, like, I don't know, I guess the main takeaway that I just enjoyed from it was just all the stories. Yeah. Just all, like, the storytelling about all the bands and stuff. Like, you know, there's a lot of information about Possessed in there. And Possessed, I feel like, don't really get talked about too much, but really being
not enough.
Yeah, really being, like, the front runners of death metal. You know, like, one of the original death metal bands. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, just, like, it's, if you're interested in music history, if you like hearing about, you know, a little bit more into thrash metal in depth and, like, what it did for music and the music genre and just heavier music in general, it's, I don't know, it's cool. It's a cool, because it talked about a lot of stuff that doesn't really get touched on a whole lot. You know, it talked about a lot of bands that don't really get the recognition that they deserve, I feel like. And so yeah, just I don't know if that's something that you're into and you just like just genuine like storytelling and just like history, just check it out.
Here's a little look at bonus features. There's 92 minutes of bonus features.
Damn.
And that's all of them right there.
I'll see if I can find some of that.
I think they did definitely release some of them online since the release of to promote the release of the documentary. So, but yeah, there's definitely, it's definitely worth picking up a physical copy because the movie is 92 minutes long. And there's 92 minutes of bonus features, so you get double the content. When you pick up the physical copy. So definitely something amazing documentary for me on the same level of Metal A Headbanger's Journey, which is my favorite documentary of all time. Fucking the Cannibal Corpse documentary. Fucking God, the Flight 666 documentary with Iron Maiden. Like there's so many. The Metal Evolution ones. You know what I mean? Global Metal. Like there are so many, but this. And look, those rank very highly for me. So for one to be immediately considered on the same class as them is a big deal for me. This is definitely one of them. This definitely is immediately there, and it's an outstanding documentary. And anyone who is a fan of the thrash metal scene, or maybe just wants to learn a little bit more about a music scene maybe they never knew about before, this is the documentary to check out. Start with, and then maybe move on to Metal Headbanger's Journey. But that's definitely the one to start with. So, wow, man, it's special. I'm really happy I got a physical copy of it. I'm really happy it's something. Yeah, it was one of those documentaries where you watch it and once it's done, you feel like you're at a show. It just makes you feel that good.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt.
So, yeah, I guess that's really all I got to say about it. You got anything else?
I don't know.
Yeah? All right.
Yeah.
All good. We'll wrap this up. So yeah, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Lost in the Dark podcast. Be sure to check out Murder on the Front Row, a new documentary about the Bay Area thrash metal scene. It is fucking outstanding. It was brought to my attention by Dean Del Rey in the Let There Be Talk podcast. Be sure to check out his podcast. He has had the director of the film and the original photographer of the book that the film is based on his podcast. So check those episodes out. They're fucking incredible. It's what got me excited and hyped as fuck to see this documentary. Also, be sure to check the description below for the venue support thing that we talked about at the beginning of the podcast. I can't remember the name of it.
The National Independent Venue Association.
Yes. Be sure to look that up. The link is in the description below, and we'll be sure to post that on our social media. And yeah, that's going to be about it. Check out Murder in the Front Row. Check out this podcast. Check out Bogwraith on Bandcamp, fucking Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, everything, Twitch, everything. And that's going to be it for us this time. It was a great documentary.
Yeah, I'm still kind of floored from it, honestly. Like, really, honestly, check it out. This is cool shit.
You got to watch it.
Yeah.
You gotta watch it. Watch this shit and tell us what you think of it, please. We'd love to hear from you about it because it floored both of us. It was excellent and mind blowing. So check this shit out for sure. But that's gonna be it for this episode of Lost in the Dark podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Raise your horns, bang your goddamn heads. We love you all to fucking death. Good night.